How's it going everyone? I hope you're all doing good. Welcome to this video in which I'm going to be talking about how I use reference images. I'll also show you an example and create a drawing in this sketchbook. So first of all, what are reference images? Well, for artists, they are the images they use as a means of helping them to draw something. For example, I feel like drawing some kind of cityscape today. I've been drawing a lot of individual buildings recently, so I want to try and draw something different here. So once I have a rough idea of what it is that I want to draw, I'll generally do a quick Google search to look for some reference images to help get me started. Now, you know me, I really enjoy drawing dense urban environments, and so typically this results in me looking at images from China or Japan, and I came across this image of a monorail. Apparently this is in a place in China called Chongqing, and I mean, look at it. As soon as I saw this image, I knew that I had to use it in a drawing, so that's what I'm going to do. So this is how I usually get started, right? I'll have a reference image up on screen in front of me and I'll start drawing it. Here I'll start by drawing the monorail. And although I've got this image I'm working from, I don't intend to simply draw all of this in detail. Instead, I'm using it as a way to get started. These lines that I'm drawing for the monorail allow me to set this up in perspective, and you'll see as I progress with the drawing how I add to this and make it my own. Now as I'm creating the drawing, I start to think about what I could do with it. I know that I want the monorail running through that building, but what else should I add around that? At first I thought about adding a giant figure into the scene, like overlooking the monorail and buildings below, but I think maybe I've just been watching too much Attack on Titan. Then I had another idea to add some additional monorails. You know, then I could have one going in the other direction below this or something. That might have made for an interesting drawing, but eventually I decided to draw what is something like a train station where people would wait and board this monorail. So now that I had an idea to draw some kind of a train station, I had to look for some reference images, and I came across a few images that helped give me an idea of how to draw this in terms of details and how it should look. So now that I had looked at these reference images, I had a good idea of what I needed to draw, but I had the task of drawing it to fit within the context of what I've already drawn here. This is why it's important to have a basic understanding of perspective, right? Because of what I've already drawn here, I have a sense of how these other lines I add in here should converge to what would be a vanishing point on a horizon line. In this case, I know that the horizon line will be down at the bottom of the drawing somewhere. Even when looking at the reference image at the start, I pay attention to these things. Anyways, I can talk more about perspective in future videos, but you can see why it's important when it comes to doing stuff like this. So this is another way in which reference images are used when I create a drawing. I'll look at an image of something from different angles, I'll observe all of the details, and then instead of drawing directly from those reference images, I'm tasked with drawing the subject on a different angle, one that's appropriate and fits in within the context of the overall image that I'm creating. I do this a lot in my perspective drawing videos, like on Patreon I'll attach a reference sheet of whatever it is that I'm drawing, and these images allow you to observe and familiarise yourself with the subject. On a side note, the artist Kim Jung-gi, I'm sure you've heard of him, he can draw so many things without the need for reference images, and the reason he doesn't need reference images is because he already has a deep understanding of what he's drawing. I think I saw in an interview somewhere that he's always observing things when he's outside, and he's been doing that since he was young. He'd always be drawing as many things as he could, and so he's built up what is often referred to as a visual library. He has all of these reference images stored in his head. He can imagine and visualize what he wants to draw before drawing it. And the good news is, we can all do that too. We can expand our visual library by observing things and drawing more. I mean, I've drawn so many buildings now that I can easily invent and draw them from imagination, but in addition to that, you do need an understanding of subjects such as perspective, and if you want to draw people, you know, it helps to understand anatomy. Anyways, this drawing is coming along. I've added this guy who's sat on top of this train station. I bet he has a good view from up there. I'm actually relying a lot on the ruler here to draw this, and you'll often see me draw some guidelines across the page as well. These are lines that are converging in perspective, so when I'm drawing in windows on these buildings or other sections, then I have an idea of how I should angle my lines. A lot of this comes with practice, like the more you draw, the more you'll start to understand these things. But in terms of this drawing, I'm still looking at the reference image I had shown at the start, but I'm not a slave to it, let's say. I'm not sure if that's the best way to say what I'm trying to say, but what I mean is, I'm not drawing everything I see in that image. You can see from looking at the drawing here that there's a lot of differences. Like, don't get me wrong, the overall scene and view from below here, looking up at this monorail, that's the same, and this image is what gave me that idea, but the way I'm drawing these buildings and adding more of them around here, that's something that comes from me, right? Like, I'm drawing these from my imagination now. As we move down here towards the bottom of the image, I'm going to draw another train station, similar to the idea that I had at the start when I said I was going to draw some more monorails going in other directions. I thought that drawing another train station, one that looks the same as the one higher up, would look really good and work well in terms of composition. I outline a few people who are waiting at this station, and you know, when you look at the image, you look up and see another station above. I was having a good time drawing this one. You can see as well how I actually outlined all of it first before adding the details. Notice as well all of my lines in perspective running across the page. This train station is at the forefront, and so in the background around here I draw in some buildings with all of these windows, and again everything I draw follows the same perspective. I do improvise a lot as well as I do this, like most of these decisions are made in the moment. That's why sometimes you'll see me erase something and redraw it because I had another idea, or I realise something doesn't look as good as I expected. I'm just shading in a lot of this now, as well as filling in these empty spaces. You've probably noticed that I've had to speed this up a bit. I think this drawing in total took about 8 hours to finish, which is a good amount of time. I mean, if you do want to see some of the real-time drawing footage, I do post all of that from every drawing that I do onto the Patreon page. Anyways, I'm almost finished with this one. I'm just going to make some final adjustments. So there we go, that's another drawing done in the sketchbook. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. It's similar in style to some of the older drawings I did in this sketchbook as well. So I hope you like it. I hope you found this video useful. It was an insight into my process. You know, sometimes I do draw directly from reference images as well. It just depends on what I feel like doing in the moment. But I hope you found it useful. If you did, then please leave a like. And with that being said, keep on drawing, and I'll see you in the next one. If you enjoyed the content I create, then do consider becoming a patron on Patreon. You will gain access to exclusive tutorials, study documents, process papers, real-time drawing footage, and more. Plus, you will also be supporting me in a more personal way. Other than that, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you soon.